It's playoff time, man, and we're still talking jobs, maybe about even coaches that made the playoffs, like Todd Bowles. We'll get into that and more here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day. We thank you for joining us here on Locked On NFL. And let me let you know right now, we made it, man. We made it to the playoffs. All the fluff is gone, and we're going to give it to you every single time right here on Locked On NFL like we always do here in the barbershop. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. I don't care if you listen to them. I don't care if you watch them. Just make sure when you do it in a place where you can find Locked On NFL and all of the other Locked On shows. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. Y'all know we bring you the top stories with the use and the help of local experts. My man Matt Williamson is on travel because the Steelers made the playoffs. I got somebody else here today whose team made the playoff, but he ain't traveling. He's sitting home, might be in a snowstorm right now. That is my brother, Lou DiBiase. Here's what we're going to go over before I let Lou grace the microphone with that golden voice of his. We're going to talk about pick six, not an interception. No, we're going to pick 6 winners in these 6 games that's going on this weekend. Before that, we'll talk about the disrespect to Lamar Jackson. And I've been sick of it, but I'm really sick of it now. And it may be in Lamar's favor because you know what it does? It puts a little added chip on his shoulder. We're going to start at the top, though, and we're going to wonder if Todd Bowles is coaching for his job future. Louis, that sounds weird to think that a coach could actually get fired after his team goes to the playoffs. It has happened before. We've seen it happen often. But this case, it could be because of a different reason, and that is because maybe, just maybe, they don't want to lose a second offensive coordinator again.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And look, as someone that's covered the Philadelphia Eagles for almost a decade now, it wouldn't surprise me. They fired Doug Peterson just a few years after he won a Super Bowl. So there are teams that have high expectations, and especially when it comes to losing a play caller, that changes the equation. When you look at the NFL right now, teams hire any sort of offensive coordinator that had success as a play caller because they understand if your head coach is the play caller, there's more sustained success, long-term stability there. That relationship between a quarterback and play caller is so important, you don't want to lose it. So I think that's an important relationship to keep for Baker Mayfield. And yeah, if the Buccaneers lose to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, I could totally see it happen. I totally understand the logic behind it, even if it's not fair in a vacuum to say Todd Bowles deserves to be fired. I get it when it comes to trying to keep your quarterback's play caller because that is such an important relationship.
It is an important relationship, and I'm going to carve through that in just a second because I got a weird feeling about that kind of stuff. But the talk about Cohen is because he's hot. He's got the best of Baker Mayfield. They lost Dave Canales last year in a similar situation as the one that we're discussing now. But here's the thing. They did a good enough job to go find somebody who might be even better. So this is why I'll talk about that. But in terms of Cohen, he's interviewing with a lot of people. One of them is the Bears. The guys from the AFC and NFC squad show had a little fun with that. I want you to listen to them talk about Liam Cohen and his future.
Yeah, Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen is one of the popular names. Obviously, there's others, but he's one of the popular names here in this year's coaching, early coaching talk. If there is a job here, and I know there's got to be some contextual value for Liam Cohen specifically, but if there is a job here on the board that you're looking at that is the best for a coach like Liam Cohen, which one is it?
Say it, James.
Probably the Bears. If I'm being 100% honest, it's probably the Bears. You have a young quarterback with incredible athletic ability in Caleb Williams that he can kind of mold. You have a great wide receiver core that you can look to the Rams that Cohen was a part of. You can look to the Bucs of this year before Chris Godwin goes down. You have a trio there that can do some serious damage. You have a tight end that he can get the ball to. Probably need to address the running back a little bit, but I mean that's really the best fit for Liam Cohen and the kind of offense that he likes to run. It certainly isn't the Saints. So quit drooling, Ross.
Hey.
I mean, who doesn't want to inherit the 32nd most cap room? And if you don't know the count, that's the worst. That's the lowest amount of cap room.
I had to leave that a little bit in there just so we can see Ross get tossed around on the panel a little bit, Louis. They James Jocko, who spoke, covers the Bucs on Locked On Bucs. He has a point. The point is, when I look at all these quarterbacks that are on the team that the team is committed to, and when I look at them and I try to compare them to Baker, and I know that might be unfair to Liam Cohen to do that because he's also coached Matthew Stafford too.
Right.
But with this, does this mean that Caleb? I think Caleb is most like Baker with the way that he plays. Does this mean that Todd Bowles doesn't have anything to worry about with Liam getting all of these interviews, or with Tampa do what they've done before? Remember before when they had a coach and they fired Lovie Smith to keep the coordinator along with him and Jameis Winston working together. So the Bucs have done this before also.
Yeah, they've done it before, and a lot of teams in the NFL, I think, again, are moving towards this strategy of making sure the play caller is the head coach, so you have that relationship guaranteed long term. I think you make a good point, too. Like Caleb Williams, stylistically, I think he fits that Baker Mayfield mold. I think that's a offensive scheme that would really work in Chicago. So Tampa Bay might see that and say that Cohen has some suitors. And it's not that, again, they don't believe Todd Bowles is a good head coach. Again, I don't think it has a lot to do with Bowles. It's more about they don't want to lose Cohen. So it's a kind of the reality of what the NFL wants right now in a head coach.
Yeah, and I did a thing yesterday with the playoffs. I looked at all of the teams that were still in the playoffs. There were 14. I counted 6 head coaches that are play callers. So it may be something that reminds me of where they think the league is going.
Yeah.
But if you watch the play on the field this year, including in Philadelphia and everywhere else where things have really been successful, they aren't doing the 7-on-7 spread the field football thing anymore. NFL D coordinators caught up. Those old dudes that just sit around and have nothing to do. They have figured out, no, you ain't beating us with big plays. We're going to make you patient. We're going to make you run the football. And it has kind of gone back to what I consider the golden era, which was the 80s and 90s, where teams actually did that. And there are good teams that aren't doing it. So to be a copycat league is all right. To copycat something that hasn't won repeatedly, that's not good with me. I still think the facts are the facts. And the fact is that most of the really good teams, when you think about Detroit, Philly in the NFC, and then you go over to the AFC and you look at KC and Baltimore and Buffalo, those teams all have good quarterback play. But guess what else they do? They run the football and they play old school ball.
No, I agree. In the NFL, it's kind of a circle, right? The defense eventually, they'll correct itself. There's an overcorrection, and they right now are prepared to stop the deep ball. So offenses now, what do? They, like you said, go back to the ground and pound mentality. I think that is true, and it's a reality in the NFL. Like the Eagles have dove all the way into that philosophy since the bye week, and that's why Saquon almost set the rushing record and beat out Eric Dickerson. But like you said, though, at the same time, when you look at the Final Four, who wins the Super Bowl every year, it still really does come down to who has the best quarterback, and that's why I do think people still want to play caller as their head coach. But I think both can work. What this playoff shows you, Wig, is that anything can work in the NFL right now. Like there isn't just one strategy that can win you a ring.
Yeah, it seems like to me, though, what people are doing is they're not necessarily wanting the play caller because he's the best leader. They want the play caller because if he's good on offense with a young quarterback, then they're not losing him to people poaching them constantly. So they don't like this process. So I think there's a little bit of a battle. Like, what's more important, getting the right leader,
right?
Even if he's a play caller, and we talked about this yesterday on the Locked On NFL show, or getting a really good play caller who gets along with your quarterback and it takes care of the coach-quarterback dynamic and the offense stays the same and it gives you a little bit of stability where you're not changing every 3 or 4 years. I understand both sides of it. We're going to get to a little bit more here. Something I don't understand is the constant willingness of people to ignore Lamar Jackson and come up with excuses as to why they don't think he's good. It used to be the stats. You can't say that anymore because statistically, he's had one of the greatest seasons of any NFL quarterback. We'll discuss that and more here in just a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored in part by our friends over at Intuit TurboTax. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering about your taxes and worrying about it? Nah, that's the thing of the past, you see, because Taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. I don't care if you have one form or 20 forms. TurboTax expert give your taxes the undivided attention while you get real-time updates on the progress, so you can focus on what really matters, and you won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head on over to turbotax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates, only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at turbotax.com/guaranteed. And today's show is sponsored and brought in part to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. I love having fun during the regular season, but the playoff time can be fun too, man. All you got to do is go on over to Prize Picks, because this is what they do. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy projections. With Prize Picks, you must simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing yards, and for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You heard me, 1,000 times your money. I've been playing for a while now, and I'm having a blast. I have a good time all the time. I can guarantee you, I got Louis on here today, and Saquon Barkley is going to be a big reason why Philly goes forward. So you can count on those touches and possibly that more. All right, here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Man, run your game. I'm running my game here with my man Lou DiBiase from Locked On Eagles, Locked On Squad Shows, Locked On everything. My man is always super, super busy. You keep him warm up there, I hope, man, because it's a little chilly down here, but you got the East Coast snow too.
It's cold, Wig. Yeah, I got that lake effect snow up in Buffalo, New York, so I'm dealing with it for sure.
I know somebody else, man, that is cold. It's hot, and that's Bo Nix. Bo Nix is on fire right now, and I love including him in these segments and Sean Payton in these segments because it gives me a chance to tell everybody once again that I was absolutely wrong. I thought this was like one of the worst rosters in the league. I thought Bo Nix they were crazy for taking him. I thought Sean Payton was doing an awful job. I'm going to stand in the paint right now and tell you that is not true. In fact, I was dead wrong. And now Bo Nix is really one of the biggest surprises along with Washington. I even think Denver's a bigger surprise to be in the playoffs because the AFC was considered the toughest division or the toughest conference in the National Football League. I'm going to get your opinion on it, but I want you to hear what Cody Rourke says here to Joe Marino about Bo Nix and his performance.
I want to start with Nix. How would you sum up his rookie campaign? Where has he impressed? And where are the biggest areas that you're looking for when it comes to growth?
I think to sum up his rookie campaign, Joe, I'd have to say just awesome. I mean, Bo Nix has been more than anything that anybody really expected going into the season. I think maybe some Oregon Ducks fans, maybe some people who loved him at Auburn thought, oh, yeah, he's going to light it up at the NFL level. But not many people that I talked to thought he was going to light it up at the NFL level, and he's surpassed all expectations. The most impressive aspect of it has just been poise. I mean, you see the growth from those first two games where, man, it was so easy for people to kind of start making jokes about, man, Sean Payton got this one wrong with Bo Nix. Obviously, he can't hang at the NFL level. 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in the first 2 games. The offense, obviously struggling a lot, but the poise and the growth that he showed in terms of his ability to operate the offense, to spread the ball around to different receivers, to hit throws at every level, using his legs to make plays on the ground. I think there's no question that he's been in that offensive rookie of the year conversation all year long after those first 2 games, right? I mean, he turned it on week 3 in Tampa Bay, maybe the most unlikely of places to do it based on that time of year. That's one of the last places you really want to be playing and have to come out of an 0-2 hole against a good offense. But Bo Nix led this team all year long, and this entire Broncos roster has really responded well to him.
Lou, this is going to hit home for you. He actually surprised me the same way Jalen Hurts did. I just there's a type. It looks like they were good at kickball. They're good at whatever. And then with the quarterback position, you always want a guy that's fine, but you want a guy that you think is a pure passer. Turns out he kind of reminds me of the quarterback that's coaching in Philly, and he gives them a legitimate shot to win. And I think their future is super bright with him and Sean Payton.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I was watching that clip with you, I thought to myself, it reminds me a lot of the process with Jalen Hurts. I think people look for a certain kind of quarterback. They want it to look a certain way, aesthetically, stylistically. When it comes to quarterback evaluation in college, a lot of times people think like you have to check certain boxes. But I'm starting to learn in the NFL with Jalen Hurts' success, with Bo Nix's success, with quarterbacks of different styles, finding success that there isn't just one. It's kind of like what we were talking about with the coaching philosophy. It's not, or, when it comes to like running the football versus quarterbacks winning championships, it's not black and white. I think quarterback evaluation is so complicated, and I think Bo Nix, it worked. When they first drafted him, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is a reach. Sean Payton's showing off his ego in the first round. He's trying to prove that he can do it with just about anybody, but Bo Nix has the mobility. He has the arm talent. The experience in college clearly helped. And I think also this success shows is how important a support system is for a quarterback. Having Sean Payton, Cortland Sutton, and this offense, a lot of rookies go on to other teams and they fail because they don't have this kind of support. So it's a really fascinating story, and I think it's kind of a lesson for teams that are trying to make quarterback work down the road.
Yeah, I want to ask you something since you have this personal experience with it.
Yeah.
The unexpected and the surprising success that Jalen had early, the Philadelphia Eagle fans were like, oh, we got something here, right?
Yeah.
So once he resigns and once he gets the money and then they make a Super Bowl appearance, since then, has the love affair still been there? Because now the expectations are gone up, and the fact that he's surprised with who he was doesn't mean a hill of beans when you're trying to get to that next level.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts, there's been an acceptance that's come with Philadelphia of who Jalen Hurts is. I think, again, quarterback's going to look different with every team. That doesn't mean it can't work. Is Jalen Hurts ever going to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, where he's throwing 35, 40 times a game and he's consistently going to dice up a defense inside the pocket, over the middle, throwing with anticipation? No, but that doesn't mean he can't be an elite player at this level, because what he's elite at is different than other players. He's elite at running the football. He's elite when it comes to the deep ball, explosive plays. He's elite in the fourth quarter, on third down, not turning the football over. Had one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the league this year. So again, I think people look for certain things, and if it doesn't look a certain way, you label a quarterback. And I think Jalen Hurts has suffered the last 2 years with almost a labeling of sorts. And so, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts, again, is he the 2022 MVP finalist every single game? No. Is he the guy we saw in Super Bowl 57 always going toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes? No. But I think he has established himself the last 2 years as a top 10 and oftentimes top 5 quarterback.
We are going to discuss this further in segment 3 when we start previewing games. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk about Lamar, because that dude is 2 MVPs in and should be going for a third. And some folks who from out the gate, we call it off the dribble. As soon as you start dribbling, you know what? They never liked them, and they're still finding reasons and excuses to come up with why they don't. So set yourself up for that one. We just did it. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson, and then a whip around the league with all of the. I'm going to get Louis to do a pick 6 for me. He's going to pick 6 winners. We ain't got to give a score. He's going to tell us who he thinks is going to win the game. He's going to pick Philly, so we can. It's really 5. He's really going to pick Philly, but we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. That's right, man. We've been playing FanDuel for a long time. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Listen, visit the website and all you got to do is you're going to get all the information you need. You can get the latest on the injuries. You can get the historical impact when these two teams have played. Very good analysis to help you out on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Here with my brother Lou DiBiase of Locked On NFL, Locked On Eagles, and he's all over the place, man. Sitting in today for my man Matt Williamson, who is a normal Friday guest, but he is on travel with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were talking about quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Bo Nix that people like. And see the humility I tried to show when I came on here and say, I'm going to talk about these dudes. I'm going to apologize. And I'm going to ask a guy who kind of went through the same thing with his quarterback. I went through it a little bit with Blake Bortles because one year Blake Bortles actually I think he made the top 100 if I'm not mistaken. I know Allen Robinson did. But Blake threw for almost 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. And I told everybody who would listen, it's fool's gold. They extended him. It got his 5th-year option. They gave him a 2-year extension. A year later, he was gone, and the Jaguars went a lot of years without a quarterback until they got Trevor Lawrence. So Lamar Jackson. I brought that up because the Jaguars had a chance to take him, and they didn't. They took Taven Bryan, and Lamar Jackson got to Baltimore, and he shows up. The dude has 2 MVPs. They always talk about him not winning. They always talk about what he needs to do, and in the next breath, you'll hear him tell you how good Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are, who haven't won anything either. But and Josh Allen never won anything either.
Yeah.
And do that. I want you to hear my man Ostriker ain't putting up with the disrespect of Lamar Jackson.
People are talking about how, without Derrick Henry, Lamar wouldn't be doing this without Derrick Henry. Lamar won 2 MVPs without Derrick Henry. I mean, are we just going to take away what he's done previously without him? It's been great. Both guys have benefited. I think we should just leave it at that, where Derrick has been a great help to Lamar. Lamar's been a great help to Derrick. And both guys have benefited from each other being in that backfield.
Listen, it gets sickening. I don't even debate it anymore. If he loses a game, he can't get over the hump. He could be 30 out of 31 for 500 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and ran 100 yards and ran another one, and they'll say he can't win the big game. And to me, it's just trying to validate feelings that you had before instead of doing what I did early in the show, man, and said, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or Tony, same thing for me. Like, I was not a Jalen Hurts believer for the first 2 years that he was in Philadelphia. I was a Carson Wentz guy. I thought that pick ruined the Eagles franchise quarterback, and I said I was wrong as well, and same with Bo Nix. I think the Lamar narratives, they form because of people's draft takes. Like, I think a lot of people in this business, they have a take about a prospect, and they just dig their heels in. And Lamar Jackson has proven year after year all of those narratives wrong, especially this year. Like, if people are taking away from his success of 2024 because of Derrick Henry, they're not watching the Baltimore Ravens. I have not seen Lamar, and Lamar's been an underrated passer his entire career, but this year, he's been on another level as an anticipation thrower when it comes to layer throws over the middle of the field, extending plays, making plays outside of structure. He's been on another level. So if you think he's a product of Derrick Henry, first off, you haven't been watching Lamar for years, and you especially weren't watching him this year. So I really hope, I've been a Lamar guy since day one. I really hope that he does silence these narratives in the playoffs and he at least gets to the Final Four, maybe to the Super Bowl, because I think I said this actually on Locked On NFL a few months ago. He might go down as the most underrated player in NFL history with the way he's treated. Already 2 MVPs. He could have a 3rd one going back to back, and you would not think he's that caliber of player based on the tone of which people talk about him compared to, like you said, other guys that also don't have a ring.
I think that's why it's important for us to point this stuff out, because if not, perception will outdo reality. And look, Fred Taylor should have been in the Hall of Fame, if you ask me. But I'm a Jaguar fan, and the first thing people admit was Jacksonville. No, you got a job to do. I don't care where he plays.
Right.
You see what that dude did his entire career. Jimmy Smith is another one with like 10 or 11 100-yard games, and people go, he's kind of a poor man's Jimmy Smith. What do you mean a poor man's Jimmy Smith? Jimmy Smith has more 100-yard games than Andre Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, 1,000-yard seasons than all of those dudes. So it just kills me, man, when people do this kind of stuff. But to think that words don't matter, they absolutely do. And words matter from Peter Bukowski. That's my buddy. Peter's talking about Green Bay and their matchup with your team. And that's why I did this, because I want to hear it. They played early in this year in Brazil. It wasn't a great game. It was an early season game, but I thought Green Bay should have won. To me, they left their food on the table too much. Listen to Peter talk about this game. He don't sound too optimistic, Louis.
But the NFC is not going to get started until Sunday afternoon. The AFC is going to have 3 games in the bank before the NFC even takes the field, and that is going to be Peter Bukowski's Green Bay Packers not traveling to Brazil for a rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles. Peter, we'll let you have the floor, my friend. Is there an upset brewing here? How much does the quarterback situation matter with two quarterbacks that are at least a little bit banged up? One, I think, a little bit more than the other, though.
I really wish that I could have one of those Men in Black
the little memory
like
eraser
memory
things.
eraser things.
Yeah.
So I could just forget about the last 2 weeks. All the underlying metrics tell me that this Packers team is really good. All the metrics that I care about, EPA per play and the DVOAs and all the acronyms that people love to make fun of me on Twitter for. Those things say that this Packers team absolutely has a chance to upset the Philadelphia Eagles. But the team that I've seen over the last 2 weeks, they look like they should not even be playing this weekend. So it is hard for me to square those two things right now. I also remember week 1, once upon a time, when the Packers did everything. They tripped over their own testicular region so many times in week 1. I can't even tell you. And they were one stop away at the end from winning that game. 411 yards of offense with a C+ performance from the offense.
My man Peter said they tripped on their own package. Now, let me get your opinion of that, Louis. You're on the other side of it. You're the Eagles guy. This game ain't gonna look nothing like that other game. First of all, the health of the quarterback. How's Jalen Hurts doing?
Yeah, so Jalen Hurts was actually, right before this show started, cleared fully for practice today. He did clear concussion protocol. Nick Sirianni reported he is good to play on Sunday against Green Bay, Tony. So I think, Peter's right in a way. Green Bay did trip on themselves a lot in that game, the way he put it. But also, this Philadelphia Eagles football team is nowhere near the same team that we saw week 1, especially on defense. They were not tackling well. They did not stop the run. They could not contain Josh Jacobs. Avonte Maddox got torched by Jaden Reed all game long. Now they have Cooper DeJean in the slot. He's been the best slot corner in football this year, and I think should be a Rookie of the Year candidate on the defensive side of the ball. They've been number 1 statistically in pretty much every defensive category since the bye. So, yeah, I think Green Bay, they kind of played with their food in that football game, and Philadelphia, they struggle, especially on offense with turnovers, but it's not nearly the same football team. So I think Green Bay, they should not go into this game thinking we can do things the same way we did week 1 and beat the Eagles on Sunday.
No doubt about it. Let's park it right there, man. Since we do a quick whip around. Normally we got 32 teams in 16 games. They ain't got that nice playoff time. A bye for the Chiefs and a bye for the Lions. We won't talk about them. I'll start in the AFC. Texans at Chargers.
I'm taking the Chargers, Tony. I think the Texans the last month, just don't even look like a playoff team at times, and I think the Chargers defensive line is going to take advantage and get to C.J. Stroud. I like LA.
A correction, that's Chargers at Texans. Okay.
Yes.
Steelers at Ravens.
We can't do what we just did with Lamar Jackson and take the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? I'm taking Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson's going to exercise some demons this postseason.
I will watch these two teams play in a mud pit, dog. I will watch that game anytime because that's what it is. All right, last game of the AFC, which will play on Saturday. They're going, actually, the Bills look like they play on Sunday as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think they do play. Yeah, no, I'm right.
Sunday at 1. Yep.
Yeah, Sunday at 1. All right, we got Buffalo hosting the Broncos and Bo Nix, who we just discussed.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos have been a fun story this year. I actually think it's going to be a closer game than people think, but I do think the Bills will win a close one at home. But Denver, they're going to make it tough. I really do.
All right, let's walk on over here. Let's go out west. The Rams game has been moved to Arizona because of the fires. We are deeply saddened by what is going on in Los Angeles, and we pray for all those involved and give a special salute and a little pat on the back to the firefighters that work so hard. We don't want to be naive of that, but now this game has to be played in Glendale. I think because of all of this stuff, man, and the Rams players, they're probably pretty concerned about their families. I really do believe it's unfortunate, but I think the Vikings take them out.
Yeah, I was going back and forth with this game. I'm going to pick the Rams. I just, again, when it comes down to the playoffs, sometimes I lean towards the quarterback. I like Matt Stafford over Sam Darnold. That game against the Lions concerned me with Minnesota. I've been wondering all year how legit that football team is. They've proven me wrong that they're better than I thought, but I still don't know if they belong in that category with like Detroit and Philadelphia. And I say the Rams rally around this story this week, and I think they're going to get the win.
No doubt about it. We mentioned the Bucks and Liam Cohen and Todd Bowles. That's a tricky little game, man, with them playing against the Washington Commanders. The last time they met, it was in D.C. Nah, it's going to be down in Tampa this time. So how do you think this is going to go?
I like the upset, actually. I think I'm going to take the Commanders and Jaden Daniels.
NFC East in the house.
I do. I think Eagles fans won't love me picking a rival in this one, but I'm going to take Washington.
Last but not least, I don't even
fly, Eagles fly, man. I'm going to take the Birds, Wig.
Yeah, you wouldn't even believe if I told you who loses.
No, if I took the Packers, nobody would believe me. Nobody would believe me. No, I'm going to take the Eagles. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Philadelphia at home in that atmosphere, they're going to get to the second round.
I enjoy your weekend. A lot of people are getting snowed in. Y'all stay warm, stay cool, have a little kit if you're in your car with you, just in case you got to go somewhere so you don't get stuck and be out there all by yourself. And also to those people in Los Angeles, once again, all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network have you in our minds and our prayers and our hearts. But I want everybody to take a deep breath and enjoy football this weekend. We'll be right back here Monday with a double dose of Locked On NFL. Tyler Rowland will be in the morning, and I'll be there in the afternoon in the barbershop. Enjoy football. Thank you, Louis. Good luck to your team as well. We will see you next time here on Locked On NFL.